Hello, welcome to I forgot what
Podcast Central.
Welcome to all the podcasts.
Welcome to the podcast called Hat Trick. I am not your host, Braydon Delacote. I'm joined by Elliott Tanty and Jordan Delacote.
All right,
Excellent open, Braydon. This is why we're here, to clean up the scraps, the garbage. We're like the guys in front of the net.
Stop all of the pucks or balls. Anything, frankly.
Welcome to Hat Trick. I am Jordan Delacote. Braydon and Elliott, thank you for picking up the rebound there after just an absolute airball of an introduction. But look, we were off for a week, so we do have some rust to shake off, cobwebs, whatever other, metaphoric, all the cliches of a player who's been on the bench too long. That we are all a little rusty, and we are going to get back to it. Elliott, you have been off for God knows how long. Braydon and I did a show 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember what we talked about, but we were back, ready to go. I'm pretty sure that sports have continued out there without us, so we have some catching up to do, and that is our goal today. However, we're really only going to do one real topic, and then we're just going to have some fun anyway. So it's a bit of a mail it in March kind of episode. Maybe that'll be the episode title. Here we go. Here's topic one. All right. As I said, we only have one real topic, and there's really only one thing we've all kind of been wanting to talk about. The NHL trade deadline has come. It has gone. It means we are in the home stretch of the regular season. Obviously, we are Oiler fans here on this show. If you are not an Oiler fan, first off, thank you for listening. Secondly, this may not be the episode for you, but we will try to talk about some of the other deals in the NHL because, look, there are some interesting storylines all over the place, and it was a very busy trade deadline week. I'm sure it was very difficult and frustrating for the producers there over at Sportsnet and TSN when they have a special 6-hour program lined up for trade deadline and all the deals are done ahead of time. And so they spend 4 hours not only trying to fill time, but basically just recapping things everyone's already been hearing every pundit and their mother talk about for the last 4 or 5 days. Braydon, for you, biggest deal, whether it's the Oilers or anyone else in the league, what was the biggest whoa moment for you last week when trades were flying?
Ooh, biggest whoa. Well, as an Oilers fan, for sure, the Matthias Ekholm was a big whoa. I think the biggest of the whole deadline, I think for me was it's got to be that massive deal that saw like 100 players move from New Jersey over to San Jose, the Timo Meier trade. There was, I think it could have fielded a whole starting lineup, just the amount of players and picks all involved in that trade. That was big, really, really big.
Yeah, you're right. You're mentioning the Timo Meier, Scott Hartnell,
Scott Harrington, sorry. Hartnell doesn't play anymore.
Timu Ibrahimovic.
Okay, I should say Edmund, these names. Andreas Janssen, Shakira Makhmadulin.
Yeah, you're doing a much better job. Okay, look, you're right. That's a big trade, but is it really going to make a difference? For me, bang for buck, you have to look at what both the New York Rangers were doing, getting a guy like Patrick Kane, and also just depth. And also, as an Oiler fan, looking at the Pacific Division, not a huge fan of what LA did. They got a real genuine goaltender out there, and they got a pretty good defenseman on a team that's already been doing pretty well. Not a huge flashy move necessarily, but really the only starting goalie to move with consequence was Korpisalo, and he does make the LA Kings a little bit better at that position. So that's a little bit difficult. Elliott, for you, biggest move, biggest surprise, biggest wow, or biggest yawn? What do you got?
I don't know. It feels like this is sort of a yawn, but also like a bit of a wow. It was that the Chychrun deal finally got done. It feels like we've been talking about this for 24 months. Maybe I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but Chychrun's been basically for sale for a very long time. I think through last trade deadline even as well. So, and it seemed like he was rumored every week, every city that was in contention that maybe needed a defenseman was in on Chychrun. The deals finally get done. That conversation can end. So I think that for me is sort of like the big wow outside of the teams that I follow and care about.
For sure. So let's spend a moment on those. The Edmonton Oilers made two significant deals, and then obviously a third deal that was a very important piece of the puzzle because of the money that was leaving. First, obviously, Jesse Puljujarvi goes to Carolina for a prospect and a pick. That was salary dump. Let's just be straight up about it. Yes, he hadn't played well enough to keep his spot here, and I'm sure that there were some question marks around, of the 3 or 4 guys with the similar sized contracts, he was the easiest piece to move, and obviously that's what they needed to do. Difficult, obviously, to see a guy who we've all really hoped would do well go, but it hasn't panned out. It never panned out. Next, obviously, the big deal. Braydon already talked about Ekholm for Barrie and Reed Schaefer and some picks. And did the Oilers pay too much for Ekholm is the question, Elliott.
I don't think so. I think that was sort of the going rate for that type of defenseman. You always want it to be better. That's the difficult place that GMs are in, is everyone's going to be hypercritical. But for that caliber of defenseman, and filling the gap that we needed to fill as an organization, also being a dollar in, dollar out team, that also limits your capacity to negotiate as well too. I think it was an appropriate pay, and it's a real big payoff for the Oilers, not just for the rest of this season, but for the next 2 as well.
So, Braydon, can you just really quickly give me the scouting report on Michael Kesslingray and tell me why the Oilers should be disappointed that this prospect is gone?
I have no idea, dude. Apparently he's good. He put up some decent points, I think, in the AHL. But
I'm just kidding. Look,
I want you to talk
about Bukestad. I want you to tell me why Bukestad's the right piece here as a depth centerman.
I want to dig in on Kessler. Well, Bukestad is what, 6'4", 6'5". Like, this team's gotten bigger. There's a right shot, who can kill penalties. I think moving into the playoffs, the Oilers got better, and they just have to be grateful that they're not among the teams in the East that got massive, that were already massive. Boston Bruins added Tyler Bertuzzi. Toronto Maple Leafs added like some amazing talent.
Okay, but let's be fair for a second. Boston,
Hold on a second. None of the teams, I think, that the Oilers have to face in the Pacific did enough to actually be in competition with where the Oilers got to.
Fine. Let's talk about Boston for a second, though, because you just said they got bigger, but they also lost 2 of their starting top 6 guys, and Taylor Hall and Foligno, for probably the end of the year. Both those 2 guys are now hurt,
and they've got Tyler Bertuzzi.
So they had to add depth, but it was a guy in, guy out, is all I'm saying. So it'll be interesting to see how much it does or doesn't affect. But they've been good. They didn't need to get better. Well, sure, they got better. They got bigger. But back to the Oilers for a second. You said they got some size. He can take draws. That's something the Oilers need. He's already scored 1 for them. But we just watched the Edmonton Oilers play back-to-back games against Winnipeg, and it's back to Jekyll and Hyde. I don't think it's as simple as what a lot of the pundits want to say, that it's whoever's between the posts makes the difference. Because I watched the game in Winnipeg, and at least 4 of those goals he never saw. They were deflections. They were weird screenshots. Jack Campbell's struggling again. Sure, he seems to be a streaky kind of guy, but overall, I think the Edmonton Oilers
down with 5 goals a game for the rest of the season.
They need to be able to prevent 5 goals against. And I think that, did the Oilers do enough with these 2 moves to give themselves a chance to win in tight, high checking games in the playoffs consistently, or are they still going to struggle to get the defense they need, Elliott?
Yeah, because this team is on paper better than the team that they fielded last year. And the team they fielded last year was able to play tight checking games in the playoffs and relatively well, outside of, some nuts games against Calgary. They figured it out. They figured it out against LA. They figured it out in some games against Calgary, and then they saw what it takes to win when they played against the Avalanche. So yeah, you've improved. On paper, you've made this a better defensive team, and they've already shown that they can do it. I mean, there's a couple things that we're not talking about here. Evander Kane is still not on the team. That continues to be a major gap in terms of just size, grittiness, just changing the dynamic of games in that way. Yes, there are problems with defense, but that, I think, comes down more to systems and teams knowing the Oilers, being ready to play the Oilers. I mean, these are conference final teams last year, one of the last 4 teams remaining. They have a lot of respect. Teams come and want to bring their A game against them, and the Oilers are starting to see it. I think they're going to figure it out, and they got better on defenses, which is what they needed to do.
I was a big fan of Barrie. Like, I loved what he did with the team. I think he was a really great teammate, and he will be, he'll continue to be that kind of guy. But I went to the Toronto Maple Leafs game kind of on a whim. Fun fact and secret note on buying tickets to any sporting event: buy it after the game started, because you can get really cheap tickets. I ended up in first row, and sitting that close watching Matthias Ekholm play, it's like this guy really does change the feel of how that team defends. They're scarier. Like there is an intimidation factor that this guy brings that I think will impact the team on the back end moving forward.
Okay, so I guess the question is this. When you look at where the Oilers are right now, obviously they're still in a wild card spot, but they're 2 points out of, I mean, they're basically tied for third place. They're sitting in the wild card because they have one more loss than Seattle, who I guess has a couple extra overtime losses or something like that. But when you look at it right now, the competition they're facing in the Pacific Division and the Western Conference in general, where do the Oilers, where should we expect the Oilers to be in 4 weeks when we're looking at playoff actual positioning here? Can they win the division at this rate? Can they catch the likes of the Golden Knights? Can they keep up with the Kings, who are clearly streaking? Like, where do we see them, Braydon?
I think you see them at the top of the division. Yeah, I don't think Seattle got any better. I don't think. I mean, I think the Kings have a more consistent goaltender that they brought in. Gravikov's good too, but I just have a feeling that they're going to continue this push. They always play. I mean, in the last 3 seasons, they've played remarkably well at this point in the season. So I think they're just getting going, and I think that they have a very good chance at finishing at the top of the division.
So, Elliot, I'll ask you a different crystal ball question here. 4 weeks from now, do we still see the Oilers playing a goaltender tandem, or is Stuart Skinner, or for that matter, Jack Campbell, solidified themselves as the starter going into the playoffs? Because if you think about the last couple of years, come playoff time, the Oilers really did have a number one guy. And in last year, it was Mike Smith, and they went to him until he struggled. Then Mikko got a game 1 or 2, and then Mike went back in, and they really rode him to get them to the conference finals. Are the Oilers going to look to do the same thing? Can we expect them to do the same thing? And do you think that's the right approach with what you've seen so far?
So kind of a tricky question. I think there will be a definite one capital A and one lowercase b heading into the playoffs. And I think it's likely to be Skinner to be the uppercase A. But as we've seen in the last 3 playoff runs, there's only been one team that's played the same goalie in every playoff game, start to finish. So you do need 2 goalies that are willing to play. The NHL is shifting, and so I think the Oilers are right where they need to be in terms of having both guys that can do the job. I think the team trusts both. I know Campbell gets a lot of flack in the media, but my sense is that the team does stand behind Campbell. And you see this sometimes. I've mentioned this before on the show. Goalies in their first year in new cities sometimes take some time to adjust. The more experience that Campbell gets, the better it's going to be. But if I'm going to answer your question, honestly, I think it's, we're all looking at Skinner to start game 1, series 1 in the playoffs, and that's a big indication in of itself.
All right. Well, we have a few more weeks here to see how it all sorts itself out. And at least now we don't have to be wondering who's going to go where, because that has been done and dusted. Now the teams are set. And as Elliot said, obviously still some healthy bodies to get back in the lineup, and a big one there in Evander Kane, if you're an Oilers fan. A few other teams also hoping some of their injured players rejoin them. And that will play a factor down the stretch. It always does. And we'll see how hopefully the rest of them can stay healthy. A couple weeks time, we'll be looking at where they line up for the playoffs. Until then, that was topic 1. Topic 2 this week is brought to us by the Ordinary Podcasting Network's merchandise store. If you head over to ordinarypodcasts.com right now, you will see that brand new merchandise has been dropping for the last week and a half. New items for a couple of our biggest shows are available now. You can go find a awesome sweatshirt and hat combo for running down the clock. And the MCU and Me podcast has a whole bunch of t-shirts. Trust me, there will be spoilers. Head over there today to grab something to represent your favorite podcast. Okay, we're going to jump to topic 2 here, and we're going to play a game that has been on the shelf for almost a full calendar year. And much to Elliot's relief, and I think much to Braydon's disappointment, I believe both of these 2 gentlemen have very different opinions about this here game. Frankly, I'm a neutral party, and I enjoy watching both of the 2 of them play it either way. So we're going to play Who Said What? And I think we have a stinger. Here it is. All right, great. So that was you, I think, Braydon. But it's been a long time since we've heard that little.
You said my disappointment, but I think you meant Elliott's disappointment because this is one of my favorite games of all time. I can't wait.
I think you enjoy it. No,
I sure do.
If I misspoke, that's what I mean. Braydon enjoys it. Elliott does not. Did I misspeak?
I was overjoyed that we haven't had to do this in a friggin' year.
That's what I said. That's how I flipped it around for you, Braydon. You were disappointed we hadn't played it.
And
Elliott is overjoyed we haven't. It was a little revert. It's
it's okay. It really confused me there.
A little bit of word play.
Who did say what?
Who said what?
Exactly. So for those new to the format, and many of you may have never heard this game because it has, like I said, I think the last time we played it was like episode 30, which was like
you're gonna love it.
Ago. Do you know that we are approaching our 100th episode in like a month and a half here, boys? Anyway, that's for another conversation. Look, this is how the game is played. I have collected from around the sporting world some sound bites, some quotes or some clips. And I'm going to play them for our two contestants, Elliott and Braydon. They have not heard these prior to, well, they may have heard them, but they don't know what I'm about to play. And then they're going to guess the person speaking and the context. And if they can elaborate a little bit on what the relevance of this clip is in the last few weeks in sports, that's ideal. So that's how the game is played. We're going to flip a coin to see who gets to go first. Okay, great. We flipped a coin, and Elliott, you're up first.
Tails never
didn't even get to pick. Heads or tails?
Tails never fails.
Elliott's going first. And Elliott, are you ready?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Here is your first soundbite.
Oh, Canada, our home on a native land.
Yeah, so I don't know her name, but this is the woman that sung at the NBA All-Star game, I believe, who changed the lyrics to the national anthem, obviously, as you heard, home on native land, which has caused considerable controversy in this country because I don't really know. It's a statement, and so that's, I guess, what it's meant to do. But yes, it's that's the background of it, but I forget her name.
Braydon, do you know her name?
Oh, no idea.
So the singer performing it is Julie Black, and she spoke after saying that yes, she had actually had conversations with some Indigenous groups prior to asking permission to do this. She wanted to make
this was intentional.
This was 100% intentional. It was an act of protest.
I was intended.
No, but if you think about it, it's interesting because the All-Star game has led to several recently some very interesting national anthems, including a terrible rendition by Fergie, we probably all remember.
Iconic, man.
Yes, but this was iconic for a completely different reason, a clear act of protest and a statement. And obviously, as Elliott said, definitely got a rise out of many of the intended people, I would argue, which good protest does. So anyway, that's that first one. Elliott, you got one. We got one right. How good is this? You're off to a roaring start.
Yeah, really, really tough one there.
All right, Braydon.
Literally in the set.
All right, Braydon.
Be upset, man. This game's only going to get better.
Braydon, you're first. This one's actually from a few weeks back, but it's been saved for you. So you're gonna have to go into the archives a little bit for this one. But I think you'll have
the subcockles of my mind.
And they all care. You want to deliver. You want to win. And I think it is this little bit of extra that exists only in a town like Buffalo. I wanted the entire city to wake up in a good mood because we beat the Maple Leafs the night before.
Legend. Okay, well, narrows it down. Somebody. Oh, goodness. It's got to be a player. I'm going to go with Tage Thompson.
No.
Was it Tage Thompson?
Sorry. No, it's actually a retired player. And in fact, not only a retired player, but a player having their number retired. Buffalo. This took place actually back in January, but I've had it saved for you here.
Was it Ryan Miller?
It was. Well done. So you get on the second bounce, but we can't give you the full point for it. Ryan Miller having his jersey retired, legendary Sabres goaltender. I believe he still holds the team record for most wins as a goaltender. And he did ensure that he got a little extra jab in there at the Toronto Maple Leafs during his acceptance speech, which I'm sure across the NHL, people smiled when they heard that little bit of additional fun, because who doesn't dislike the Maple Leafs? All right, Elliot, are you ready here? You have a 1-0 lead now and a chance to extend. Are you ready?
Sure.
You don't release contract figures. Is that still stand, or can you let us know what you
Well,
said?
all I can tell you is it's too long and it's too much money. So that's, I mean, you want the truth?
No. Well, that was going to lead into my next point.
Next question.
Yeah, that's Lou Lamoriello talking about, I believe, the Bo Horvat contract.
Well done. Yes. 8-year deal that he had to sign with Bo Horvat after getting him signed here. And obviously Bo Horvat having a career year, so he has earned that money, but Lou does not like the deal he had to sign to keep that player. And a bit one of those kind of old school guys who's not afraid also to just say what he thinks.
Yeah, why make the deal then?
This Lou Lamoriello is a gem, but he's also, I think, highly problematic. I don't know. We should do a Lou Lamoriello segment one time.
All right, let's Elliot, you're 2-0. Like, I don't know why you dislike this game so much.
I hate this
because I'm about to freaking win here. I'm about to get this one.
I think you will, Braydon. This one's right in your wheelhouse. Are you ready?
All right, I'm so ready.
Answer to this? You seen the video? Don't do that. Dallas, baby. Dallas is the best road city. What are we talking about? I would say Dallas, New York, and Toronto. Come on, now you know the answer to this.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Also took place at the All-Star game. I'll give you a hint for that. So it's an NBA player.
Dallas, New York, and what was the last city he named?
Toronto. As the best road cities in the NBA, he said.
Let's go with oh boy.
Elliot is sitting at the edge of his seat. The win is in sight.
I need to phone a friend.
You can't phone a friend.
Oh.
We're not playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I don't even think that show's still in the air. God knows it was on the air far too long.
Best road? This guy, he plays on the road. Okay. And there's
everyone in the NBA plays on the road. That's how it works.
At least a couple times.
Also, the only guy who doesn't play on the road is like Kawhi Leonard, because he sits out half the season.
True. Maybe it is him. He did mention Toronto. Dallas. Okay, let's go with man. Let's go with
Braydon, this is a pod. People are listening to this on their drive to work. You need to give
us
an
they're
answer.
screaming at the radio right now. It's John Morant. No, it's not John Morant. I know his voice. I don't know who this is. I pass, I guess. Can I pass?
I think it's DeMar DeRozan.
Oh, it's a good guess, Elliot. It's not. It's Zion Williamson.
No.
I didn't even know that guy played.
He hasn't even played.
His question asked was, what are the best road cities in the NBA? And he answered, including Canada, which a lot of Raptors fans were quite happy to hear.
Good on him.
Elliot, you have won. Should we even continue?
No, I think we're good.
No, come on. We've got him queued up. Let's go to it. Here's just a bonus one, whether you win or lose. And I have to tell you, Elliot, this one was going to be I thought this would be the softball. I thought the first two were going to be a little bit trickier. This is the softball of all softballs.
This is always how you get me. You say something like that.
Yeah, he's going to be
let's see.
After this.
Here we go.
The fans booing at the end. Do you blame them?
Well, when you lose, I boo too. Right? I mean, I don't think they're booing the team.
Who are they booing?
As I said, our top players do.
All right, who's that?
That's Sutter. Coach Sutter in Calgary after another disappointing season in Calgary. I think he was wrong, though. They're booing him because he's literally an intolerable place to play.
How do you
I think that he and Brad Treliving might be able to share a cab out of the city at the end of the season, because I don't think this is going to end well in Calgary.
No.
Elliot,
I mean,
three for three.
Yeah, I feel like mine were easier this time.
Maybe because you complain every other time we play this game.
It's almost like it's a strategy, eh?
Braydon, would you like to do your last one?
Yeah, I might as well. I mean, we're all having fun here, aren't we?
Here's the best part. We've now played this game so often, we have a repeat. We're now celebrating the anniversary of one of our favorite clips.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
So
congratulations to us.
If you get this wrong, this should really sting.
Oh. You said I'm
just saying
here.
No, I'm just saying you've heard it before.
Right. So you should remember.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
You
only
should
been a
be
year.
able to remember this one. Are you ready?
All right.
Here
we
go.
I'm so ready.
Strike to claim it. A strike to claim it. And he got it!
That is right, I did it! That's number 5! Are you kidding me? That's right! Who do you think you are?
I am! I don't know what the fuck his name is, but he's a damn good bowler.
Pete Weber, 11 years ago, that clip.
That's amazing.
It's 11 years old this week.
Wow.
And that has got to be in the top, like the Mount Rushmore of sports highlight, quotes or whatever. It probably inspired this game right here. It's up there with everybody. Who do you think you are? I am. Well, Elliott, you know who you are? You're this week's champion of Who Said What.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
My family.
Let's play again next week.
No, we're not playing this again for another year. Okay, that was Who Said What, and that was topic 2.
If you're looking for a new podcast, you should check out the Ellipses Thinking podcast, hosted by Greg Dollar-Coltman. Each new episode, Greg sits down with a guest to talk about where they are on their creative journey. You can listen now anywhere you get your podcasts.
Okay, Elliott, you are the reigning champion now of Who Said What. Therefore, you get the honor of leading us off in our third topic of the day, which is going to be hats off. Take it away.
So my hats off goes to Team Canada, women's Team Canada at the Scotty Tournament of Hearts this week. Carrie Enerson's team, who won their 4th straight championship. Really a feat in and of itself, but basically dominated the entire round robin play, only losing 1 game to the team that they actually beat to win the championship. It was a great tournament this year. I've always sort of liked curling, but found it difficult to sort of keep up. The tournaments tend to come really fast and end really quickly. But this last week I had a little bit more time on my hands and watched them and really enjoyed the new format, the wildcard teams. So watched a lot of the Scotties. It was great curling, and now a little bit invested in the Brier as well too, watching some of that today. So because I always miss it, here's a reminder, our listeners, there is curling and really good curling going on right now. So make sure you pay attention.
There you go. Braydon, who are you taking your hat off to?
Tipping my hat off to a very early start for the Toronto Blue Jays, who just started spring training. Season is just around the corner, and the Toronto Blue Jays in their last 3 games have scored over 35 points. The last game against the Phillies, they put up 16. The day before that, they put up 18. They're putting up football numbers in these baseball games. And yes, sure, it's just spring training, but it's a very, very exciting blast off to what's sure to be a really great season for the Toronto Blue Jays.
All right. I will round us out here. Obviously, Formula One is back this weekend. And although Elliott would love me to take my hat off to Max Verstappen and Red Bull for winning the first race of the season, nobody really cares because they were so far out ahead. It's a non-story. The real story was third place. The wily old fox, 41-year-old Fernando Alonso, back on the podium for the first time since 2013. This is a guy who was out of the sport for 3 years, basically retired, and then came back, has been struggling with some bad teams. He's found himself in a very fast Aston Martin, put himself on the podium in the very first race of the season, and it's pretty awesome. You know, this guy started his Formula One career in 2001, which means when he started his Formula One career, Max Verstappen was still in Pampers.
Yeah.
This is a guy who has dominated for a very long time, multiple world champions, and he is looking for his 33rd win this season. I feel like he might get it. My hat goes off to the old guy who's still got it, Fernando Alonso.
Nice to be in a Red Bull car, that Aston Martin. It's a Red Bull car. That
Oh,
entire
you mean
Aston
the way they
Martin
designed
car
it?
is
Yeah,
in
but
its
it's got a Mercedes engine in it. That's the really crazy thing.
Well, it's
Anyway.
a hybrid.
Anyway, you can learn
That's
more
awesome.
about that on Tuesday on the Pit Stop podcast, obviously. But in the meantime, I want to thank you all for listening to this show, and to Elliott and Braydon, as always. Thanks for playing along. Thanks for being with us. And until next week, that was Hattrick.
Hattrick is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. It's produced every week by Jordan Dowler Coltman and Braydon Dowler Coltman. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network wishes to acknowledge that the lands on which our conversations take place include Treaty 6 territory, the traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and the Nakota Sioux peoples, as well as the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. And we extend our appreciation for the opportunity to live, create, and share stories on these territories.
The Ordinary Podcasting Network intends to engage in conversations and dialogue which acknowledge that reconciliation is not a destination, but a journey, and that we remain committed to practicing our craft in a decolonized space.